Hello and welcome to the North Metro SBDC programming.
Hi, welcome everyone. We'll have Courtney Berg tonight. She's going to be sharing her expertise on HR, and she has expertise that goes beyond that. I'll let her share a little bit more about her company and the work that she's doing, also as an advisor with us. And then she'll go into her talk and connect the dots for you as far as HR and childcare. And we'll go from there. If you have questions, Courtney, maybe you can share, how you like to best address questions, or uh, have questions asked either in the chat or just unmute or whatnot.
Yeah.
But you go
Yeah.
ahead and take over.
Okay. Well, thanks, Raul. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And Dora, thank you. I know that she had to step away for just a couple of minutes, but I definitely enjoy being here and am looking forward to the talk tonight. HR isn't everybody's favorite subject. Let's just be honest. Nobody really went into business to learn how to manage people and learn HR regulations. That's not why you went into your childcare business. So I understand that. And so what I do is look at HR from a real practical standpoint, real operational standpoint. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing some things with you on how to hire and manage and terminate employees with less stress. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll get going. Let me tell you a little bit about myself as well. Okay. Um, so Again, my name is Courtney Berg, and I own a company called Courtside Consulting. I grew up in Greeley, and in Greeley, Colorado, which is north of here, in retail furniture. My grandfather was a gas station owner, and he started selling recliners out of the gas station and realized he liked furniture better than selling gas. And so he turned the gas station into a furniture store, and it was in our family for 44 years. My mom sold it right before I graduated from college. And so I ended up working at a variety of places. I immediately after college worked at State Farm Insurance on the regional level. So I was an underwriter and then became a supervisor of the team that trained me. So I've done that peer to supervisor transition. I was promoted then into human resources, where I worked for a long time and then promoted back out into operations as a middle management person. And that's really indicative of my career. It's been operations HR, operations HR, and that's continued. Right before I opened Courtside, I worked at an ambulance company, a privately held ambulance company here in the Denver area, and worked there for about 9 years, 8.5 or 9 years, and was their HR director, very first one. They had no real processes or systems or anything in place when I took that job. And they had 125 people and a couple of locations. And by the time I was promoted to VP of HR and then VP of operations within that organization, we had about 350 people in multiple locations. So very fun to see that company grow and build the processes and watch those processes grow with it. So that's the experience that I bring to you tonight. I really approach things from that operational perspective. Yeah, here's the laws, but how can we make it work within the organization? As we go on tonight, I would appreciate you, as Raul said, I love questions. So please feel free to raise your hand or to put something in the chat or to actually unmute yourself and just ask the question. Let's really engage with each other. Otherwise, it's just a talking head for an hour, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants just a talking head on HR. That's not very good, right? So let's just talk about the overview of the session. We're going to visit about the employee life cycle. What is that? That's from before you hire an employee all the way until after they leave, and what happens in that time period. That's the entire employee life cycle. So it involves hiring, managing that employee, coaching that employee, disciplining perhaps, obviously evaluating if you have to, terminating that employee, or they may terminate themselves. They may separate from the company themselves to go back to school or get another job or whatever. And then I also want to cover just a little bit on policies and handbooks before we end today, just so you know. So this is really a talk that's going to be practical, and please feel free to ask questions. Hopefully, by the end of our brief time together, you're going to gain some techniques that will help you recruit people, will help you set the employees up for success on day one, handle some performance conversations that can be very difficult to navigate, and then also some decisions that you have to make as a manager or a business owner that also are difficult. But hopefully some of this information will be able to help you. So let's talk about the employee life cycle. I look at this, it's a circle, right? It's a whole cycle and it keeps going around and around. So let's start with pre-hire. Pre-hire is what you need to do before you hire somebody. So a lot of times people say, oh, I need to hire somebody. I'm going to put an ad on Indeed. Okay. Yeah. But before you do that, we're going to talk about what you need to think about. What do you need to put together before you even put the ad on Indeed? And then after that's out there, what is your hiring process? How are you screening candidates? How are you interviewing? What interview questions should you ask? Those types of things. And then once you bring them on, congratulations, you've got an employee. How do you manage them? How do you set expectations, hold them accountable, perform or do performance reviews with them, coach them, and then getting into disciplining. What happens if you need to correct their behavior to the point where you're disciplining and doing written warnings? What does that look like? And ultimately, if you have to terminate them, how do you do that? How do you do that in a way that helps them maintain their humanity and their dignity, as well as keeps you safe as a business owner? So we'll talk about that within termination, and then post termination. What happens after that? So we'll visit about the steps that you can take after somebody leaves. What do you need to do? And then we're back to pre-hire. So it's just a cycle that just keeps going around and around, and we're going to get started. I will not be covering all the information in all of the employee life cycle. There's no way that I can do that in the time that we have together tonight. So I'm going to highlight some things and talk about some things. But if you have a specific question, please, again, raise your hand, put it in the chat, let me know. And I noticed that there's a couple of chats there. I just want to check and make sure. Oh, Dora, thank you. Just to make sure that we've got those questions answered. So if I miss a question in the chat that you put, please unmute yourself and ask me. So the first question that people ask me is, how do I know that it's time to hire someone? I've started my childcare business. I'm doing it on my own. And I've got a couple of employees, but maybe I want to add another one. I'm just not sure. How do I know if it's time to hire someone? And what I always say is you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. First of all, do you really need the help right then, or is it a system issue? So are your systems efficient? They're in place. You've got processes there. It totally makes sense. Everything's going smoothly. And there's a lot of work. Or, well, I don't really have any systems in place. Well, let's start there. Maybe if you put some systems in place, you don't need to hire an employee. All right. So there's that general question to start out with. If you say, no, my systems are in place, I'm ready to go. I think I just need someone. Start asking yourself, am I turning down clients? Are people on a waiting list that I could be making revenue from, but they're sitting on a wait list because I don't have enough people here to tie in that 1-to-5 ratio or the 1-to-3 ratio, depending on what room their child is in. What about missing deadlines? Are you missing deadlines? Are you not getting things done on time for your other teachers? Are you not getting things on time for the regulatory agencies that need reporting? Those types of things. What's happening with those deadlines? Are you consistently working too many hours? If we own businesses, I'm going to say yes is the answer to that question. You're consistently working too many hours. You're working all of the time. And so you're exhausted. But at the same time, you're invigorated because it's your business. You're working toward your business and your success and your future. And so there's an energy there that's exciting. When you start hearing your family and friends say, I never see you, you're not happy anymore, you're exhausted, you look horrible, you look tired. When you start getting feedback from your family and friends that you're obviously overworked and you're stressed and they're worried about you, that's another key indicator to me that you might need to hire somebody to help you through that. So if hiring is the answer, then we've got to start thinking about what kind of hiring do you want to do. And this is I just want to touch on the employee versus independent contractor. I know that the administration, the Biden administration and the Trump administration see independent contractors differently. So be sure and keep your eyes open if you're thinking about hiring any independent contractors. Watch the news, because the Trump administration is going to be changing some things with regard to independent contractors. But generally, the employee, right, is someone that is on a W-2. They they have um, they have limited control of their work. I'm sorry, I was looking at that and thinking I had flipped something. They have limited control of their own work. They are covered by workers' compensation. They have a continued relationship with you. There's not like a contract that says you're going to work until this date, right? It's a continued relationship. There's little risk to their loss because of decreased revenue. They're going to continue to get their paycheck. And yeah, if the revenue goes down, they may lose their job, but they're not going to personally have a loss based on that. Other than that loss of a paycheck, they're not going to be, for example, worried about their house because they've taken a second loan out to finance the business. They don't have that type of loss to worry about. And they are always furnished tools and materials and supplies, and all of those things are provided for them. Whereas an independent contractor, they're a 1099. That's the tax form that they get at the end of the year. You don't take taxes out. You don't pay them benefits. Employees get benefits, and you pay part of the taxes. The independent contractor controls all of their work, provides their own insurance. All of those things are handled by the independent contractor. How do you determine what you need? If you're going to be hiring a teacher to teach in a room, and they're going to be a full-time teacher, and you want to control when they get there, what they do while they're there, how they instruct the kids, what kind of materials they use. You're going to train them. That's more of an employee than an independent contractor. If you have a special event like you're taking a trip, you're going to take a trip with the kids to, I don't know, the butterfly pavilion, or you're going to do something like that, where you're going on a field trip with them, and you need to have some extra people to come other than parents. And I understand there's some regulatory problems to this, but you want to have somebody come for a specific purpose, for a specific time, for an event, for example, to help you with something for that event, then that's more of an independent contractor. You're not necessarily controlling what they do. If they come and they set up for the event and they serve food at the event, for example. So an independent contractor is someone that is not, you don't control, whereas an employee you do control. Okay? If you decide, and I'm going to assume that we decide we're going to hire an employee, that's probably the easiest course with childcare facilities, is to hire that employee. You've got to do background checks. You've got to do all the things that are important for the regulatory agencies, as well as for the safety of the kids and the staff. So you do the background checks and everything. So you hire an employee, then you've got to determine if they're non-exempt or exempt. And the differences are listed here. Non-exempt means that they are entitled to overtime. Typically, they're paid hourly, although you can have a salaried non-exempt employee. They're paid for the hours that they're worked if they're paid hourly, and there's no premium pay per week. There's not like a threshold that they have to be paid every week in order to be a non-exempt employee. And you don't need to worry about what they do. They could manage people, or they could clean up the classrooms. Doesn't matter what they do. You can pay them hourly. All right. With exempt employees, typically salaried employees, they are salaried employees. So when you think of exempt, you can think of salaried. They're exempt from overtime. You don't have to pay them overtime. They must be paid a salary, and they must meet 3 tests. The tests are the salary level. In Colorado, that salary level is $56,485 a year. It works out to $1,086.25 a week, and they've got to be paid that much to be on salary. Okay. They also need to be paid on a salary basis, which means that they're paid on a set amount of compensation each pay period. And that amount doesn't vary based on quality or quantity of work, or if they're there or not. They get paid that set amount. Now, you can have somebody that works for a couple of days and then takes some PTO days for the rest of the week, and they get paid for that full week, although some of their PTO gets docked, right? But for a salaried individual, if they work a portion of the week, they get paid for that full week. That's the salary basis, right? With the exception of the first and last week. So if the first week of the last week that they work, you don't have to pay them for that full week if they don't start on a Monday. Job duties tests, that's where it gets really tricky. There are certain duties that people have to perform in order to be eligible for salary. So as a business owner or a manager, you can't just say, I'm going to make Joan salaried. She's a salaried individual, without her passing the salary level test, the salary basis test, and the job duties test. So she has to perform those certain duties, and there are several exemption qualifiers that she or he has to follow in order to pass the job duties test. To learn more about that, you can just Google job duties for salaried individuals, or just Google non-exempt versus exempt or hourly versus salary, and you'll get a lot of information on that. So once you determine that you're going to hire somebody, and let's just say you're going to hire a teacher for a classroom and you're going to pay that individual on an hourly basis. So we've determined that it's an employee on an hourly employee that you're hiring. So you need to really start thinking about, what do I need to do to make sure that that individual is going to be the right individual for me? How am I going to recruit the right individual to be an hourly teacher in my business? So you want to start with the job description and job posting. Obviously, we've talked about job duties, and we've talked about determining if somebody is hourly or salaried. The job descriptions are a really key piece of information to determine that. What are they going to be doing? What are those job duties, right? So you want to make sure that you've got that clearly defined for them. And then you also want to take that information and put it in a job posting and post that job on Indeed or wherever you post it. You also want to post it internally. Legally, you have to post it internally as well, so that individuals can apply for that job, and they know what they need to be doing in your classroom or in your business. And then you need to start thinking about interview questions and evaluations. So what kind of interview questions can you ask and can't you ask? With interview questions, you want to ask about the job. You don't want to ask about personal information. So you can ask about job experience. You can ask behavioral-based questions is what I always encourage, and that is, tell me a time when. Describe a situation where. Give me an example of. And as you're asking those questions, they're going to tell you about experiences in their past. And you're going to be able to interpret that and determine, do they have the judgment that I'm looking for to be able to be in the classroom with the kids? Do I trust this person's judgment to be in a classroom when I'm not in that classroom, right? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for employees that you can trust, and that you can trust to leave in a classroom with other people's kids.
Courtney, I had a question real
Yeah,
quick. I know
you
that there's
bet.
a lot of providers that are struggling with people no call, no showing for interviews, like a lot of that. Is there
Yeah.
any way to try to prevent that on this end of like how you put this out there, or the wording, or screening before interviews or something like that? And is that something we're seeing in other industries too, or is just seem to be ECE specific?
No, it is all across the board. We're seeing it. We're seeing it in every industry. I'm getting phone calls from, I work in everything from manufacturing to um, medical offices to, and beyond. I do a whole bunch of work with different industries, and everyone's seeing that. I'm even hearing that people are saying, okay, we've gone through the entire interview process, we've gone through the background check, and they don't show up for the first day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they don't call, they don't send an email, they don't text, they just ghost them. And after they've gone through all of these things and all these steps to get the job, accepted the job, they just don't show up for the first day. It is not industry specific. Here's what I would do. I would make sure that in the job advertisement and in the job description, you talk about reliability. right? And you talk about how important reliability is and accountability for your actions, right? So you're making that kind of a foundational value that you have within your organization, and you're sharing that with everybody, so that when somebody ghosts you and then calls you back 6 months later and says, "Hey, I was just, sorry about that. I got tied up." Um, I always give people kind of one shot, like, what does that mean you got tied up? Well, I got this other job and I really wanted to take that instead of take your job. Okay. You know, I that's not really tied up. You still could have called me. You were in
Yep.
a coma, you were in an accident, there was a death in the family and you had to leave town and you weren't here. All of those things, I can understand why there might be a delay in getting back to me. But yeah, the ghosting, unless there's a truly remarkable, this is what happened and this is why I couldn't call you, I wouldn't rehire somebody to bring them in for a second interview, even if they missed the first one without talking to you. So
Thanks.
reliability, accountability, all of those things, I would make sure that you're talking about those things. If you get through an interview process, if they come in and you talk to them in the interview, make sure that's something you talk about in the first interview, right? That you're expecting that. And that's really important in your industry. So if you go through those interviews, again, ask a lot of questions about their experience and look at their answers in the sense of, you want to draw out information on how they think. So their example, might not be aligned with childcare. It might be aligned with movie theaters, right? But still listen to how they use their judgment in customer service, and how they related to their coworkers, and how they related to their boss. And what does that all look like? And think about those answers and how they relate to your business's vision and mission and values, how it relates to the way that you want your employees to act and interact with parents and with kids, so that you've got that all dialed in. Once you pick someone for that position, and there's lots of ways that you can do that through the interview. You might do some kind of working interview, make sure that you're paying them for that. Um, so that there's no question about it, especially if they're contributing to your revenue, right? If they're taking care of a kid or something, you want to make sure that you're paying them. But once you make that determination of who you're going to hire, make a contingent job offer to them. So that job offer would sound something like, "Dora, I'm so excited to extend you an offer to come work with Courtside. We've throughout the entire interview process, you've just energized us and you've been great. And so we really appreciate you. Here's the job we're offering you. This is what the pay is. This job offer is contingent upon successful completion of a background check and drug screen." And what you're doing there is you're giving all the information that Dora needs to to say yes or no to the job. But you're also saying, if you can't successfully pass a background and a drug screen, I can't extend a formal job offer to you. So the contingent job offer allows you to give them a new hire packet with information, especially that background check authorization, maybe a drug screen authorization, that they need to sign so that you can get that work done, and then go back and say, "Okay, yes, you passed the background check, so we're going to move forward with you. Here's your formal offer." A lot of times I do contingent job offers verbally, and the formal offer is always written. Okay. And again, the things that are in that offer letter include the basics, right? You're going to attach a job description so you can refer to that, but just, what they're going to get paid, what their job title is, who they report to. Start date can be to be determined if you don't have that yet. Any benefits that are going to be given to them, including PTO. Obviously, in every offer letter, it should say that they're going to get 48 hours of paid sick leave. That's mandated. That's a mandatory thing in Colorado. And so you want to make sure that that's all in the offer letter. Have them sign that. Have them sign a copy of the job description and give that back to you for their personnel file. Okay. And then the other thing that you need to do, so we get through this whole great process, right? And here's the employee that's going to be coming in, and you've got a trainer that's supposed to train them that doesn't know they're coming in that day. It totally deflates their experience. That new employee is going to walk in, bubbly and excited because they've been working with you as the owner or the manager, and they're coming in and they're ramped up and they're ready to go, and they walk in and you say, "Hi, Susie. Here's Jimmy, and Jimmy's your trainer." And Jimmy says, "What are you talking about? I didn't know Susie was coming. I'm not ready for Susie. I have no idea I don't know what to." This is ridiculous, right? Right? Susie's making a decision that I'm not sure I'm coming back after lunch. This was not a good experience for me, right? So you want to make sure that you get the trainer ready for training, that they know when Susie's going to be showing up, and they know what you want to do with Susie when Susie gets there. And you and the trainer can work through a training schedule, or you could develop a training schedule that everybody follows. So you just say, here's the training schedule. Everybody knows the first Monday they do this. The first Tuesday that, you can have it all laid out
Courtney,
and
can I
give
add
that to
something
them.
to that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So something else we would suggest is either having the co-teacher in that classroom involved in the interviews, or at least giving them the resume and saying, hey, this is who we decided to hire. This is what they can do. This is how we feel like you guys would work together well. And this is why. This is their experience. So then at least they're coming into a warm handoff. I remember somebody in a training was like, if you go to a party and you're just like, oh, hi, Jenny, I'm so glad you're here. The drinks are there. The bathroom's there. Have fun. Compared to, hey, this is Susie and she also goes bowling all the time. And this is Sammy and he used to work at the same place you did. Like, kind of that warmer handoff,
Right.
because you're really trying to set the tone for like that welcoming environment, because you want them to come in and feel kind of at home. And you can also use that as an opportunity for mentorships. Like, not all programs have specific trainers, but you can have a more senior staff member who is the, welcoming person or the welcoming committee, whatever, to be like, hey, this is the person that will talk you through the handbooks and show you where lunch is. And maybe the director goes out to lunch with the person on their first day. Like, you can kind of do anything like that. But it can be really helpful. And it makes a huge difference on how welcome people feel.
It really makes a huge difference, right? It really makes a huge difference on how they feel. And I've actually used that example of inviting somebody over to your house for the weekend, right? You let them in and you say, here's my guest room and the kitchen's there and we'll see you around the weekend. Well, wait a minute. You invited me over for the weekend. What are you talking about? You're going to see me around. Like, what does that mean? Right? So you want to extend that warmness to them. Two things. One, as part of the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act in Colorado, you actually do have to announce who that person is going to be working with. So if you invite a teacher in and they're going to work with a certain age group in your childcare organization, the teachers in that age group need to know who you selected. So innately, Dora, you're doing exactly what you need to do legally. Is you need to say, we invited in Bob, and Bob is going to do this. You know, will you, here he is. Here's his background. This is why we selected him. We're really excited. He's going to start on Monday at 8 o'clock. And so, we hope we all welcome him. We're going to have a lunch together. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
So you do that, and that really helps introduce it. The second
Courtney,
thing is I was
we
just
have
going to
some
say,
questions in the chat too. So when you're done with the second thing.
okay, great. If you have them involved in the interview process, make sure that you're training them on what they can ask and can't ask. And that's one of the most important things, because we're humans. We're going to say, hey, are you married? Do you have kids? Right? May or may not be relevant to the job. And so they may not have kids, but be great with kids, right? So stay away from the personal questions and stick with past experience, business related questions, job related questions. Okay, Dora, I'm ready.
One of the things I've seen is people have the approved interview questions and then go in a circle. Like, the co-teacher asks the question, then the director asks the question, then maybe
Yep.
the assistant director asks the question. In the chat, Andrea asked, Courtney, can you list a reference where we can see the exempt tests and specific level minimums, salary level, base test, job duties, etc. for exempt? And then she
Yeah.
also asked if state required sick leave, etc., for both full-time and part-time employees is mandated, and where are
Yes.
the legal regulations for that?
Okay, sure. So for the first question, you can actually, from a reference standpoint, you can go to Google and you can Google exempt versus non-exempt, or you can Google exempt tests to get the salary level the salary level test, the salary basis test, and then the job duties test. That there's information on that, and if we have time, I will dig into that further for you. We just don't have a lot of time tonight, so that's why I didn't dig in very much, but you can certainly do that. The salary level for Colorado is 56,485. I'm looking, cheating, there we go, 56,485 a year, so $56,485 a year, or $1,086.25 a week. And that's the salary level test. The basis test is they get paid the same amount every pay period. And the job duties test talks about exemptions if they're an executive and they manage, or an administrator and they do HR and IT and finance kind of things, or if they're a professional and they're a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an architect, maybe they're an actor or an artist. And then it gets into outside sales and computers. Computer programming, computer development, that kind of stuff. So those are just a highlight of those job duties. But yeah, dig into those, the job duties for exempt salaried status. Okay. The state required sick leave is 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, up to 48 hours a year. It's required for part-time or full-time employees. They earn it, as I said, 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. So it's not just full-time. That's how it is accrued. It can accrue quicker than that, or but it has to accrue at least at that level. And the regulations can be found under the Healthy Families and Workplaces Act. That's where that came from. And it's paid sick leave. So you can Google mandated paid sick leave in Colorado. You can look at the entire Healthy Families and Workplaces Act. There's a lot of information in there. So you can look at that. Under that paid sick leave, there's actually areas that reasons for people to take that sick leave. So it actually defines how they can take that sick leave and what's included in that. Okay. All right. Any other questions, or are we ready to move on?
It looks like that's
Okay. That's it? Okay. So the recruitment and the offer, we talked a little bit about interviews, do's and don'ts, and interview question format. One thing that I want to just talk about for a second is the documentation of the interview process. Make sure that you have come up with some type of evaluation tool to use when you're interviewing people. And so what I mean by that is you develop an evaluation sheet, maybe with the questions listed. So when you have a structured interview, you've got questions listed out. As Dora was saying, you can actually assign questions to certain people in the interview, and they always ask that question. But then you can score those questions. All right. So you can say, all right, on question 1, they got a 5. On question 2, they got a 3. On question 3, they got a 2. Question 4, they got a 5. Question 5, they got a 5. Right. So you can score those questions based on what you were looking for in that answer, and then come up with a total. And the reason you want to do that, even though that's subjective, if you're scoring everybody on those questions and you're scoring them the same, your 5 is your 5 throughout your entire scoring experience for all of those candidates. And so you come up with that basic score at the end. Then if you're interviewing me and I'm an over 40 female, and you're interviewing John, who's a 25-year-old male, and you hire John and you don't hire me, and I come back and I say, I'm sorry, this is wrongful hiring practices. You discriminated against me based on the fact that I'm a over 40 female. You can say, well, you can prove, right? Courtney, you scored a 35 and John scored a 95 based on our evaluation sheets, right? Now, there's legal processes involved in disclosing that information. But what I'm saying is you've got something that you can go back to actually say, no, I can tell why I selected John. It's because he scored better. And Courtney, did not score as high. So it's important to have some kind of evaluation tool that you put together to really understand why you selected somebody. I was asked recently in a training session, somebody asked me if they score the kind of the soft skills higher than they score the actual how they use a computer and their computer knowledge, and that knowledge and skill part, they score that less than the abilities part, than their soft skills part. And how can they record that? Because somebody may score great in the knowledge and skills part of the interview and may understand how to use a software and meet those qualifications very well. But then they don't have good time management or organizational skills or customer service or communication. And so what my suggestion is weight those evaluations. If you have very high desire for excellent communication skills, then that should be the heaviest weighted area of your interview. If you're not worried about the fact that they may not know how to use pivot tables in Excel, then that could be the very lowest part of the weight of your evaluation in the interview. So think about your priorities and how those questions align with your priorities. And then if you need to set up a weight system, weight each question based on those priorities. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Offer letters and background checks, documentation. Okay. All right. So let's actually talk about the employee paperwork that you need for new hires. When you're working through that employee paperwork, there's required new hire paperwork that's listed here, and then there's other paperwork. So be thinking about those required documents: the I-9, which is the immigration form, the W-4, which is a tax form. Colorado has a tax form as well, and then obviously the new hire reporting form. There is a form, but a lot of times you can do that online, and you can do that with the W-4 information, your tax information you get from that employee. You can go on to the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment website, and you can fill in that new hire reporting information. That information is used in case someone has outstanding wants and warrants, obviously, but also do they have outstanding child support payments that are due, or alimony payments that are due, or are they receiving unemployment and now they're employed, so they're not going to receive unemployment anymore, et cetera. So they track that based on Social Security number. The other paperwork is going to be more aligned with your business, and that is, the direct deposit authorization. You can't require people to do direct deposit. You can encourage people to do direct deposit, but if somebody doesn't want direct deposit, if they actually want a physical check, you need to provide that, or provide another way, maybe a pay card or something like that you can give them. The employee handbook acknowledgement. When you have policies and a handbook, you have an acknowledgement of receipt. And that's basically a piece of paper that the employee signs that says, yes, I received the handbook. I know I'm held responsible for it, and I will know this and follow the handbook. And so it's a little bit longer than that, but that's basically what it says. And then an emergency contact form is so important in every job, in case someone gets hurt on the job or somebody doesn't come to work or whatever that might be. Those things are very important to have as well. There are other documents that you may want to have that are important to have in your business and in your industry. So be sure to add those to any new employee paperwork that you need them to fill out. Okay, we're moving on to onboarding. Any questions so far on what we've talked about?
I did have a quick question.
Yeah.
I don't have any employees right now. I'm just a home provider, but maybe in the future. And I was
Sure.
wondering about the I-9. That you just have them fill out within like a certain amount of days, and then you just store it, right? Like it doesn't actually get checked, or you don't upload it. Has any of that changed with the
No.
new administration stuff?
Great question. A lot of things are changing with the new administration, and we're waiting for some things to settle out. So Michelle, thanks for asking that question. The I-9 has to be completed within 3 business days, 3 working days of that employee starting with you. It can be completed before they start, but it certainly has to be completely done by the 3rd business day that they're working, or the 3rd day that they're working. The I-9 form itself has changed in April. It changed a little bit. You can still use the old form, but the new form has taken off any reference to gender identity, and made some other minor changes to it. So there are some changes that way. But the I-9 form is going to be important, because that's how you prove that somebody can work legally in the United States. So go through that I-9 process. I don't believe, and Dora, you might know this. I don't know that childcare has to use E-Verify, but E-Verify is a computer program that you can use to enter the information you get from the I-9 to make sure that that individual is able to work in the United States, just to confirm that. They're obviously going to give you documents that you're going to look at and say, yes, this looks like a real Social Security card and a real driver's license or a birth certificate and a passport, whatever those things are that they give you. So
As far as I
you're
know,
looking
they're
at
not
that and
mandated to use E-Verify.
E-Verify, they're not mandated. Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah, but you can. And so the only thing that I would say is if you do use it for everyone. So you can say, okay, June 1st, I'm going to start using E-Verify on all new hires. So then you've got a date that you started using it, and any new hire after June 1st, you're using E-Verify on. Okay. Just make sure you're consistent that way. So that was a great question. Thank you so much. Anything else? Let's talk about onboarding really quickly. And what I want you to think about is onboarding is the welcoming, right? What we've talked about. You're going to welcome somebody into your home. It really comes in two places. One is the orientation to your company. These are things that are true all about our company. This is the history of the company. These are the goals of the company. This is the mission and the vision. These are the value statements for the company. This is how we want you to answer the phone. This is how we want you to, whatever. So it's a company-wide thing. Training is going to be more job specific. In the infant classroom, you do X, Y, and Z, right? In this classroom, you do ABC. And so it's more specific to what they're going to be doing every day in their job. That's training. So orientation is company information, training is job specific. And when you think about bringing somebody on, as we've talked about, day one sets the tone. Are they going to be enthusiastic and be energized and be ready to come back to work on day two? Or are they going to think, why did I take this job? I wonder if there's something else out there, because of the way that they were, that orientation in that first few days went. The 30, 60, 90 day plan, when you think about it, that first day you're doing orientation and introductions. The first week is kind of that job shadowing, maybe learning where things are, understanding where the classroom dynamic, learning about systems, and do they have to use a computer, what software packages are they using, and do they have access to all those. So that first week is kind of that all right, we're just starting out at the basic level. 30 days, you're going to be doing some skill development with them. You're going to be doing a lot of check-ins. In that 30 to 60 days, you're going to be doing more independent tasks with them, or giving them more independent tasks and giving them increased feedback on how they're doing. You should be giving them feedback from day one, right? They're doing things well. They're following the expectations. They're right down on the path you want. Oh, you slipped over here. You're not doing exactly what I need you to do in this particular situation. Let's get you back over here and get you back on the path, right? So you're giving them constant feedback and constant coaching and having conversations with them about how they can improve their performance, or about how they're doing a great job. So you're giving them both positive and, positive feedback, and then feedback on how they can improve their performance as well. And then when you get to that 60 to 90 days, you're really talking about performance conversations, how they're going to move forward after that 90-day introductory period. What does it look like? Where are they going? Where are they headed? And you can start talking about development. You can start talking about, their goals and how you can help them get those goals. Okay. And then I always say, I don't know how you guys can do a team lunch. I don't know that that's possible, because the kids are there from, dark 30 to dark whatever that would be. It's not dark 30, but it would be really late, right? So I don't know if you could have a social gathering after everybody leaves, everybody's exhausted, is that feasible? But think about somehow you can bring the team together to meet the new employee or employees. How do you facilitate that? What do you do? Does anybody have any ideas on what they do?
Courtney, this is something I've seen a lot of programs do on PD Day. So like some programs have like one day off per month where they do trainings and team building and stuff like that. So like usually programs have at least some small amount of time monthly to be able to do something like that.
That's great. That's great. Okay. And so yeah, you want to bring people together. And so what you want to do with the new employee is say, hey, you know what? We don't really have a lunch period that we can all get pizza for, but 2 weeks from Monday, we're going to have our PD day. And so we're going to introduce you and really want you to have some time to talk to everybody at that particular day, and then schedule time on that day for that interaction to happen. Don't just expect it to happen organically. Make sure that you've got time to have those introductions. Okay. All right. Training, we've talked a little bit about how you can do that training. There's just some information here. You're going to get a PDF of these slides, so you'll have those notes there. And then setting expectations. That's so important, to set clear job expectations, to make sure you're meeting with your employees so that they understand those expectations. And you can talk about one-on-one meetings versus team meetings versus company-wide meetings. All of those things are important, and they all have different purposes in each of those meetings. And then just that ongoing communication is going to be vitally important. Disciplining someone, when you discipline people, you're telling them that they need to do a better job. They need to stop the behavior that they're doing right now and get back on track. And so when you're taking those steps for discipline, be sure to consider your culture. How are you going to talk to them, and how is that going to align with your culture and your vision and your mission and your value statements? Make sure that you're not doing something that misaligns there. If you're calm and you're talking to them, you don't want to start screaming at them in a disciplinary conversation, right? You want it to align with your culture and with what you want to have happen. You're going to have multiple times to coach them, multiple times to talk to them. If that doesn't work, then you're going to be going into, a written warning, and you're going to be working on improving their performance through more formal means. Okay. But always consider precedent. Has this situation happened before? What did you do? Is this situation different somehow? Is there a reason that I wouldn't follow what I've done before? Is there some special exception that I need to make here? What have I done so far? What has worked? What hasn't? What other actions can I take? Make sure that you're documenting everything. And if nothing's working, then you're going to be terminating. You're going to be involuntarily terminating that individual because they are not meeting your expectations. Okay, so there's two types of termination. There's voluntary, which is where they quit, go back to school, go to another job, whatever that might be, and involuntary, where you ask that person to leave. You're firing that individual. So think about when to terminate. And I don't mean necessarily what time of day, but I mean, have you done everything you could? Have you provided clear expectations? Have you given them tools and training and support that they need to do the job? Have you given them the right time to improve? Did you give them a final warning? If all of those things are true, then you can start thinking about, okay, I've done all of these things. Now I need to think about when I'm going to terminate. When is going to be a good time to terminate, so that I help that person maintain their dignity, so that I'm not embarrassing them in front of parents, in front of kids, in front of other teachers. How do I get them kind of privately to do that? How do we work through the whole getting their personal belongings out of the center? And how do I help facilitate that? Right? You want to go through the legal steps, of course, but you want to be very respectful, and work with somebody. This is a very hard transition. Right? A lot of people, there's the role that we play, right? There's the role that we play as an employee, as a manager, as a business owner, as a mom, as a dad, as a spouse, right? As a kid, whatever that is. There's all these roles in our lives, and a lot of people at work combine their identity with that role. And so when you fire them, there's a whole psychological thing going on, that all of a sudden now they don't work for the center. They don't have the title that they had before. How do they have conversations with anybody? How do they talk to their spouse or their kids at home saying that they got fired? So there's a lot of emotion and a lot of energy, negative energy around terminations. Bring calmness and peace to that conversation. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, because you've walked through several steps. You've walked through verbal warnings, coaching, you've given them written warnings, you've given them a final written warning, and now they're going to be terminated.
Courtney,
Okay,
there's a couple things
tough.
add to that is like, make sure you're always documenting what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
document that whole process. Like, I talked to Sandra today and reminded her that she had had a previous warning about being late. So now I talked to her again today and I gave her a written warning. Or just every day that they're late, or whatever the incident is. You know, I saw them speaking harshly with a child on this occasion, on this day, and this is what I heard. It was reported to me on this day that this happened, whatever that may be. And then if you do terminate, have a witness with you. Because especially in early childhood, like, people can get very fiery. So if you have an HR person or an assistant director or that mentor teacher, like, just having anybody there to kind of witness that is really helpful. And then if you can do it at the end of the day on a Friday, then you can have them come back for their belongings the next day. But sometimes if you escort them to the classroom, it just like causes problems for the kids, the other teachers. Like, it can just be super unpleasant. So if there's a way to dismiss them and have them come back like in the evening after hours or on a weekend, sometimes that works better.
Yeah, absolutely. There are situations where you don't want them to come back. That has happened, and so in those occasions, you can say, "I will box up your things and send them to you." Take an inventory of somebody witnessing you're taking things out of the desk. It's not like, "Oh, I had $10,000 on my desk and you didn't send that back to me," right? You've got witnesses saying, "No, there wasn't a $10,000 in your desk." So make sure that that's there. Safety is so important. So how you escort them off the premises. People are like, I can get to my car by myself. I just always say, no, it's our policy that we walk you to your car. It's policy, right? I'm not following out because I distrust you. It's policy. And really what you're doing is you're making sure they get to their car and that they exit the premises without incident. And then you make note of that. As Dora said, there's no way you can document too much. You need to document as much as you can, right? Your safety, when you terminate someone, make sure that you're closest to the door. Do not have, if you have an office where they come in the door and you're sitting behind a desk and they're on the other side closest to the door, they can get out and you can't. They can block your way of getting out. And people have been injured and killed because they have not been in a situation where they can get out of the door. If you think somebody is dangerous, then have security or the police department there. And that's perfectly fine. I understand that you're at a child care center and having police there would be awkward and hard to explain. But when you explain, we had a situation that we wanted to make sure that everyone was safe. And so we asked the police to be here just in case we needed them. Thank goodness we didn't. And I appreciate you asking. And then just move on. Don't even talk about what it was, right? Okay. Final paychecks. If you terminate someone, they need their paycheck that day and they're going to get PTO paid out, any accrued but unused paid time off or discretionary pay. They would get that in their paycheck. The paid sick leave that's required by the state of Colorado is not paid out at termination. So you don't have to pay that out unless you couple that with PTO. So you put those hours into a PTO bank, then it's considered PTO. You have to have a special policy that says that's what you're doing. You're putting that 48 hours into your PTO. And then you'd have to pay it out because it's called PTO at that point. Okay. All right. I have information here on the policies and the handbooks. You're going to get a copy of this. This is really required or highly recommended policies you should have. And then I also have some kind of HR best practices stuff that you can put in, that you can do it. All right, that you can use in your handbooks. From a overall, my philosophy over 35 years of doing HR and operations, what I'm going to say to you is create an atmosphere of success. Right? What you want to do is you want to create an atmosphere where people will be successful. And you want to create that welcoming atmosphere. You want to be fair with people. You want to be a straight shooter, right? You want to communicate with them, not inappropriately. You're not going to divulge any confidential information, but you are going to have conversations with them if their performance is lacking, because you want them to succeed. So talk to them and say, hey, you did this great like last month, and this month you're kind of, what's going on? Are you okay? Right? Express concern, talk to them like you would just any other human being until it gets to a point where no, they're not changing their behavior. And now it's impacting business. It's impacting our productivity. It's impacting the kids. It's impacting the parents. We've got to make a change. Right? So then you make that change in that particular time. Know the employment laws. Even if you're not an HR professional, as a business owner or manager, you're still responsible for knowing those laws. So make sure that you do. Make sure you're familiar with them. If you think, wow, I don't know, that gray-haired HR lady did that speech that one night and talked about this crazy like rule that we're supposed to follow about paid sick leave. I don't remember. I need to reach out to somebody to get more information. Even if you just know to reach out to somebody, that's fine, right? You don't have to memorize things, just know to reach out and have conversations about it. Okay. Everything should align with your values, as I talked about, your policies, your procedures, your practices. Make sure that you're thinking about their safety at all times. And then the bottom line is create a trust bank. Create a trust bank with your employees. Have conversations with them. Build that trust. Make deposits into your trust bank. Because when you make a mistake, or when they do, if there's nothing in that trust bank, then it goes into a negative balance, and that's really hard to get out of. So build the trust bank. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Right? If you can't meet it, if you say, I'm going to do that tomorrow at 2 and you can't do it, then let them know you can't and let them know when you will do it. Right? Follow up, do what you say, build trust with the employees by every one of your interactions with them, just like you're building trust with the kids and just like you're building trust with the parents. You need to build trust with the staff. And then they, in turn, will build trust with you and with each other and with the parents and with the kids. All right. Okay. All right. I think I've got a few minutes, right? Just for questions or whatever. What questions? I'm going to stop sharing if that's all right. What questions do you have?
I had a general question when you were talking about disciplinary procedures.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like when I was a teenager, not showing up for a shift, was
Yeah.
you'd get written up. And after
Hmm.
3 write-ups, you were
Hmm.
terminated. That was just
Hmm.
standard across the board. And now I hear like from my husband at his work and my kids at their work that people just don't show up all the time and nothing happens to them. Like what
Mm.
changed and why? Is that just kind of
Mm.
across the board, a cultural thing, or do you know?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think COVID's put everything on its head. Like it just kind of reset everything. People are dressing differently, they're showing up differently, they're just and what I'm saying is where it used to be business casual, now it's more casual, right? Where we used to make sure we were on time for meetings because otherwise we'd get in trouble. Now sometimes we can be late to meetings. People not showing up and not being disciplined, that's a management problem in my mind. That's not, it's not that they shouldn't be. I think they should be. I think they should be disciplined. They should be, okay, hey, you were late today. Are you okay? Right? That verbal warning kind of, or I'm sorry, the awareness counseling of, hey, I noticed you were late. Want to make sure you're okay because you're not normally late. Oh, look, we were late 3 days in a row. Hey, I'm talking to you and I need to give you a verbal warning now. You can change this because you have. This is just a new pattern. I need you to change the pattern and change your behavior to make sure that you're meeting expectations. Here are our expectations. This is our attendance policy, blah, blah, blah. Continues to be late, then you've got to go down the written warning path. And, in that particular case, I'd probably give 2 written warnings and then a final written warning. And then the next time they'd be terminated, right? Um, I, I think that sometimes people right now are just not, um, they don't have the energy to actually discipline and hold people to account, and it's getting them in trouble because so long they haven't. Since COVID, it's been like, oh, it's just COVID, they're just, it's a tough time, it's a tough. And now all of a sudden we're starting to see the um I guess the ramifications of not paying attention and not holding people accountable for so long. And so uh, it's a reset button you've got to hit, right? You've got to hit a reset button with these people and say, okay, time out. Like I know that we've kind of had a change in our dress code and we're a little more casual now, but flip flops and swimsuits are not the things that you can wear to work anymore, right? You need to wear this. You can wear jeans, you can wear t-shirts as long as they're pressed and they're nice. You can wear, closed-toed shoes if you're working on the, whatever you want to say, but you can reset, right? Everybody's been coming in late. I'm resetting. Let's go over our attendance policy. We're not going to be late anymore. Effective tomorrow morning, this is what happens when you're late. And so it's just a reset conversation. Again, being honest, being open, being empathetic, but, having that conversation and resetting those expectations.
That makes sense. Thanks.
I
Yeah,
think
you
also
bet.
too, like you can explain it in a way where it's like, we're cool here and we're relaxed and we're a big team, we're doing great, we support each other, whatever. These are the things we can get away with. Like we've decided now we
Hmm.
do allow flip-flops and we are able to have pizza parties every Friday or whatever. Like we are a cool and inclusive culture by doing these things and we value fun and whatever, and that's great. But the other side of that is like these are like the, you know, barriers to that. Like these are the boundaries of that. Like we can be cool, wear t-shirts, tank tops, whatever, that's fine. But these, primary things are really important, and that is being on time, showing up, communicating if you can't show up, whatever. Like whatever those limits are, because people do, especially in ECE, want like a pretty informal culture. But it's really important to explain, like we can be an informal culture, but these are the things that like this is not, we don't mess around with these things. But like it's cool if you wear flip-flops, whatever. We're working with kids all day. All right. But if you can explain that, like kind of the give and take of it, then it makes it seem less formal-ish, that conversation.
That's a good point. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where are those boundaries, right? Reset them. And it's okay to just say, I know it's been this way, right? Acknowledge that. Acknowledge it, because they're going to say, that's not how it used to be. Okay, that's fine. It's not how it used to be. This is how it was. I get it. Here's where we're going. This is what's happening going forward from here. Okay. Yeah. Great point. I love that. Thanks, Dora.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh,
Can you guys hear me okay? Never mind.
no. Can you type it? Can you okay, great. We'll look at it that way. Any other questions?
Courtney, this might be more of a financial question than an HR question,
Ooh.
but do you
Oh,
have
you
a
don't want
way? Do you have a way for people to handle minimum wage increases equitably across their staff? So like as minimum wage goes up, like now in Denver it's 1881. And in other
yeah.
counties too, it's slowly been increasing. But then you have somebody there for 20 years that's making $20, and you have new people getting hired with no experience at 1881. Do you have any guidance for like kind of how to balance that?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. The Equal Pay for Equal Work Act now has guidelines on when and how, well, I guess when and why you can increase pay. So it actually has certain reasons that you increase pay. And if it falls outside those reasons are pretty broad, by the way. But if it falls outside those reasons, then that's not necessarily going to pass an audit. You're gonna, it looks like you're paying somebody more just because you like them versus somebody that you don't like, right? So you want to make sure that you follow those guidelines. So if you're going to be raising pay, be sure to justify it. In that particular case, Dora, the example that you just gave has to do with seniority, right? They've been there longer, so you might increase their pay because the minimum wage coming in or your base pay coming in has increased. So now you're going to be looking at, okay, let's kind of look at percentages. And I am not the math person. Let's just be honest, not my deal. But you could look at percentages. Okay, if the minimum wage went up 10%, then her pay, your long-term employees pay could go up 10%, right? And so what you're going to say is, no, it's proportionally increasing based on how we increase that base pay for somebody starting new. The other thing that I would advise is looking at your pay in conjunction with the marketplace to make sure that you're competitive. Because a lot of times you're going to lose good people because you're not paying, you need to pay 25 more cents an hour. So just be thinking about that competitive side.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet. So I'm looking, Andrea, at your question. We are in a field and a very rural area that is struggling to attract and retain qualified staff. How do we hold healthy boundaries while you are also desperate for anyone who is qualified per ECE regulations? We have a teacher that holds such power because they know it will be near impossible to replace them, but consistently does not attend mandatory staff meetings and has undermined administrative policies with decisions around students, et cetera. Okay. There's a lot to unpack in that question. That's a very good question. What I'm going to say is we don't have a lot of time left. This could be a good question for you and I to talk about offline, and so you could actually sign up to see me at the SBDC, and I'm happy to talk about this. Generally, this is what I'm going to say. Number one, your other employees are having problems with that employee probably too. They're seeing that that employee is getting away with things and that you're not doing anything about it. And so their mind, they're saying, ooh, can I get away with that? Can I get away with not coming to staff meetings? Can I get away with undermining administrative policies? Because that employee is. And that's going to start problems at that level. Okay. So number one, you've got to decide, do you want all of your employees to do the behaviors that this person is doing? And if not, then okay, you've got to reset with this person. And I would start, this is a long time, I think you said it was a teacher that holds such power. So they're holding perceived power, right? Because you're having trouble replacing them. And they're saying, I'm bulletproof. Nothing's going to happen to me. I can do whatever I want. Well, whenever an employee gets into that mode, that can be just detrimental to an organization because it undermines the authority of the administration of that organization, and it creates havoc within the employees of that administration. And yeah, one bad apple spoils the bunch, right? Exactly. It's a situation where it's just going to grow into a bigger problem. It may not grow into a bigger problem with the other employees, although they're not going to like it, but it's going to grow into a bigger problem with that person, and they're going to continue to push the boundaries. So what I would say is, no, it's time to reset. If you're interested in knowing how to do that or having more conversation about that, please sign up and let's talk. Okay. Okay. Sorry about your audio there. You can hear okay though, right? Okay. Okay. all right, great. Well, we are at the end of our time, and I don't want to go over. Raul has been nice enough and Dora have been nice enough to allow me to speak to you tonight, and so thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Time is so valuable, and I appreciate you spending some of that time with me tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. And what's the best way for us to have everybody connect with you if they want to see you?
Yeah, so they can go through they can contact the North Metro SBDC to see me. I can do an advisor, have an advisor session with them that way. Everybody, I think the scheduler, I'm trying to think. I think that you have my scheduling software. I'm going to be out for the next couple of weeks, but I'll be back toward the end of June. So just I've got some times set up specifically for SBDC clients. If those times, if there's something more pressing that you need handled quicker, the SBDC is not bashful about giving me a call and saying, "Is there any way we could get somebody in earlier if it's an emergency?" So. So whatever that might look like. So contact the SBDC and we'll make it happen.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll be shooting out in the follow-up email more about how we can arrange that. And again, thank you, Courtney, and we'll get you connected with those that want to further discuss things.
Okay, that's awesome. I know this was a whirlwind tour of HR. There's so much more. This is like just a little bit of the top of HR, and it's a huge, gigantic iceberg under the water. So I look forward to having more conversations with you. Please feel free to reach out, and just good luck. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Courtney. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you too, Dora. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, and we've got a few minutes here before our next speaker comes on. What would you like to proceed here, Dora?
Is there any like ECE specific HR questions? I do totally empathize with you, Andrea. Like sometimes we just need that warm body, but I have seen programs have like really senior, great, amazing teachers leave because there is that one person that is just toxic. And it's hard to get rid of people when you have nobody, especially in like rural communities, because there's just not enough people. So I feel that one. But you also don't want your good people to leave either. So It's rough. That situation is rough. I hear about it all the time. It's rough. I don't know. It's hard. Any other like ECE specific HR questions? Any stories? Does anybody have any termination stories or anything crazy that's happened? Or any onboarding stories? The craziest onboarding story I've heard lately is that somebody hired somebody from the Jurassic dinosaur puppet show. Cause like this guy happened to interview and wasn't like totally director qualified yet, but like he did the little puppets for the dinosaur show that like comes through town every once in a while, and he was an amazing teacher. She's like, I've learned to look at unconventional places. Like, I guess so. He's a puppeteer, and now he's an ECE teacher. So we'll just take them from wherever we can get them.
Mrs. Doubtfire. All right, I'm
So
gonna.
funny. Well, I guess
and-
I'll ask to
Go
like,
ahead.
if I was to ever hire someone as a family home provider, it'd be the same as being a center, right? All the paperwork would be the same.
Yeah,
Just maybe my processes would be,
a little more
simpler.
simplistic.
yeah, okay. Makes sense. And you can just hire somebody like Courtney's company to just help you with all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. It's also really important, like what Andrea is saying in the chat, like finding the right fit seems so much more important than the technical pieces. Like you might find somebody that's a great fit, but somebody else might have EQIT or Pyramid Plus or something. Like you can train people and you can teach them things, but you can't always teach like personality or accountability or responsibility or, you know, the quality ways that people interact with children. Like that is much harder to teach than sending someone to a training. So if you can be on the lookout for like the right fit and somebody everybody really likes that like tries out well for a day and does great and all the parents seem to like them, that's much more important than the trainings that they have. You know, we can always train more people, but finding like the right fit for your program and your staff and your team is way more important. Otherwise, you have somebody who could be super qualified that doesn't get along with anybody and the parents all don't like them. And then what are you doing? You know?
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and move forward with the next part here. We do have Connie Wall, who is here now, and she's gonna speak about business insurance. And then have an opportunity to ask questions to her about that. So Connie, thank you for being here, and feel free to take over.
Let me turn on my audio first. Okay. Thanks, Raul, for having me. I really appreciate it. And always love talking to you guys. I want to just check in real quick and make sure we're talking to childcare businesses, correct? Okay,
Perfect.
good. That's how I have this geared. So,
Both the in-home and centers.
okay, that's helpful. Good, because I'm going to touch on both of those for you guys, and just want to kind of give you a little background. My husband and I have had our American Family Insurance Agency for just in May 25 years. So, been doing this for a long time. But the child care aspect is so near and dear to my heart because years ago, in a previous life, I worked in the industry, and so I know how hard you all work and how much effort it takes and how exhausting it is. So thank you so much for all you guys do. Appreciate you. And I'm excited to help you guys protect these businesses that you guys are starting and that you care so much about. I will, if you want to put any questions in chat, I can leave time at the end and go through all of those questions for you guys. And then my contact information is on, will be at the very end as well, and Raul can share that with you. So if you have some questions that you want to ask me, that you think of either afterward or not in front of everyone, you can certainly reach out to me separately. That's no problem at all. So, okay. So I am going to try to share my screen, but I'm working on two monitors, so I want to make sure I share the right one. Let's see. Well, I think it's this one. Can you guys see that okay? Good. Okay, great. Okay, so insuring your business. Just want to see if I can get this to move to the next slide. Okay. Why should you insure your childcare business? This is a very important asset and something that you are working hard to build up. So it's very important that you protect it so that it can't be taken away from you from one lawsuit or one loss that you didn't have enough coverage for. I don't want, if you don't already have coverage, I don't want you to be afraid of getting it because it can be affordable depending on your situation. And I'm also going to talk to you right now about ways to save money and how to make it more affordable in the long term. Sometimes it can be, depending on if you have a small business and it's out of your home, it can be as little as $500 a year. Our average premium for a smaller sized childcare business is probably, you can probably expect to pay maybe $100 a month, depending on the coverages that you need. And we're going to talk about those coverages. So first of all, for those of you that have an in-home childcare business, I want to talk to you about that and make sure that you think about a few things. First of all, you want to make sure that your home insurance or your renter's insurance knows that you have a childcare business out of your house. That's very important because if something were to happen related to your business, they may not cover it. It could be excluded. So they may require that you have an endorsement on your policy. They may not cover you. So you might have to find another carrier that will cover you. So it is important, reach out to your agent if you haven't already and let them know that you have your business out of your home. If you do decide to just keep your homeowner's policy, make sure you have enough coverage for your business as well as your personal liability. So you may have, say, $300,000 of liability, and that's going to have to be shared between your home and anything that can happen to you personally, as well as your business. So you're going to want to, my recommendation would be to bump that up as high as you can if you do keep the same policy. Also, you want to know that business claims can affect your rate. So we've all been seeing the rising home insurance rates. I'm sure you guys are really tired of it. I am too. And when you have claims that are from your business against your homeowner's policy, that's going to raise your personal home insurance rates and can also affect your eligibility. So that's another reason that I would encourage you to consider or at least look into having a separate liability policy for your childcare business other than just your homeowner's policy. There are some coverages that you might need as a childcare provider that wouldn't be covered under your homeowner's policy. Things like professional liability. And we'll talk more about that, but if there's something that you're making a promise of, you know, I will teach your kids to read, or I will teach them their alphabet, and somebody sues you, they say, my child didn't know their alphabet when they graduated from your program. That's a professional liability, and that's something that you would have to have on a separate policy. There's also abuse and molestation charges. Those are probably not covered under your homeowner's policy, and very important for those of you in this field to have coverage like that. Defense costs may not be covered. So if you have a lawsuit that you have to defend yourself in, you may not have those, the cost of having a lawyer represent you. You may not have that covered unless you have your own childcare business policy. And finally, medical payments. So if one of the kiddos were to get hurt on your property, or a parent trips and falls on their way up to your door, that may not be covered. You want to check with your carrier if you're just going to keep an endorsement for your childcare business on your home policy. So those are all just little things that I want to keep in your mind to think about if you don't have a separate policy already. So just kind of going into insurance for your business, I want to talk to you about, this is the dry stuff, but I hope that if I give you some of this terminology, it will help you to be able to better evaluate a policy that you get and better understand what coverages you need for your specific situation. So I'm going to just kind of go through these for you. General liability. This is the most important thing. This is the basic liability for your business. If someone sues you for something, this is what's going to cover you. This is what the most important coverage that you can have and the base for any policy that you buy for your business. And professional liability, just mentioned that. That's if in the course of your profession, if you make some type of promise and you don't live up to that, or someone feels you haven't, then that would be covered under professional liability. So it's a little bit different than the overarching general liability. Child abuse and molestation, did talk about that too. That's something that typically comes with any child care standalone policy. So if you have just an endorsement on your homeowners, that may not be included. But if you have a separate policy, most likely that will be part of that liability coverage. I want to talk about auto coverage. So I imagine most of you have auto insurance coverage. If you are taking your kids for field trips, or you pick them up from school and bring them to your house or to your center, you need to have commercial auto insurance coverage. Talk to your insurance agent if you don't already have commercial auto insurance and find out, make sure, hey, if I'm running my childcare business and I have my kids in my car, am I covered under my personal auto policy? Most likely you would not be. So definitely if you are taking them field trips or picking them up, you want to look into that. Another reason you might need commercial auto policy is a thing called hired and non-owned auto coverage. This is if you have employees and if they ever run an errand for your business, maybe they run to the bank and make deposits. Maybe you guys are working on a craft and you realize, oh, I forgot a key supply for this craft. And your employee runs to the store and they get in an accident while they're running to get that supply for you guys. If they are running an errand on business time and they are an employee, that accident, the liability of it can come back to you. And if you have hired and non-owned auto coverage, that will cover your employees when they're running errands for your business. You don't have to have coverage on all of their vehicles, but this hired and non-owned auto coverage can be very key to help you if you have those types of claims. One more page of terminology, medical payments. So if one of your kids is injured, it can be an accident, but as you guys know, sometimes you have high deductible health insurance and the parent may just be really stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they may need help from your policy to cover the medical expense. Let's say the kids are out swinging, one of them jumps and they hit their tooth and it falls out and they have to go to the dentist, and that costs a lot of money for the parent. They could file a claim against your policy for just the medical coverage. They don't have to sue you, but they have that medical component of your policy that will cover that accident. Data breach and cyber liability. This is really becoming so much more important with all of the scams and data breaches that are out there. People are trying to steal your data. If you store your kids and family's data on a computer, you probably want to get this endorsement on your general liability policy. And that's going to cover you if it gets leaked or someone hacks into your system. So ask your agent if you can add that endorsement. Find out how much it is. Usually it's pretty affordable. EPL is called employer practice liability. This is if you have employees. If one of them feels like maybe they were wrongfully terminated or mistreated as an employee, they may sue you. This would cover you if you are sued by one of your employees. Workers' compensation, you can think of this as kind of like health insurance for your employees. It covers them while they're on the job. And if somebody gets injured while they're working for you, the workman's comp policy will cover that injury. It is required by the state law in Colorado that if you have an employee, you must have a work comp policy, even if they are part-time, even if they are related to you. If they are not an owner of the business, By state law, you do have to have that. So you want to look into that for sure. Make sure you get that. Building coverage. So if you rent or own a building for your business, you want to protect that just like you would your home. So if something were to happen to it, it's damaged by something you guys are doing, maybe a craft damages it, there's a fire, the roof is damaged by a hailstorm. All of those things are covered under your building coverage. So if you own the building, you have coverage for the entire building. If you rent the building, you have damages for premises rented to you. So coverage if like you do something that damages the premises, and your landlord will want to make sure, they'll be asking you to make sure you have that coverage. So we've gone over quickly all of the coverages or typical coverages that you can see on your policy. Let's talk about what you guys can do to help lessen your risk. What can you do to keep from having claims from the start, which will in turn make your premium lower? You're doing it right now. Attending classes like this is so valuable. You're working on your business. And a lot of people that own businesses don't take time to work on their business. They don't have time. So this is very valuable and great. And you're learning how to be a better business owner. That last talk that you just had about legal, I've sat in on a few minutes of that and I've learned so much myself. So all of those things are going to help you run a very efficient business. That will therefore make you less likely to have claims. Licensing and certification, you guys have a lot of those requirements in your industry. So make sure you're compliant with those. That's going to help you to have the right licensing and be legal and compliant. Follow the state ratio rules. Your insurance carrier is probably going to ask you questions about how many adults you have to children, and the better ratios you have, that can help your premium. If you have pets in your house, specifically dogs, keep them separate from the kids. No matter how good your dog is, they are animals and you never know if something may happen. I've had some of my other customers that have a childcare business, and there was a bite, and that can really cause a huge claim, a big problem for you. It can hurt you with trying to get your licensing or maintain your licensing. So your insurance carrier is going to want to hear that you don't have them mixed at all. Playground equipment, make sure it's safe, make sure it's compliant, make sure you have soft material under it, make sure it's secure, all of the things that I'm sure you guys know, and inspect it regularly. The more your childcare business is a normal center, and by that I mean it's during regular hours, it's not late at night, the more traditional your business is, probably the cheaper your premium is going to be. If you're doing something that's you're doing lots of field trips and you're doing it, you know, late at night, or you're doing drop-in care and they're not regular kids, those kinds of things are okay, but they can make your premium a little bit more. And the age-old thing, protect your claims history. So if you think you might have a claim, but you're not sure, call your agent first before you file a claim. Protect your claims history. And this goes for personal too, for home and auto, as well as your business, but protect it like you do your credit history. Insurers are looking at that so much more these days, and people are getting canceled because they have very few claims for what you would think. So you want to, if you are filing a claim, you want to make sure that it's a claim that's going to be paid and that it's a worthwhile claim to file. So I want to leave you guys with some next steps, some things that you can do based on what we've talked about today, if you haven't already got your policy set up. If you do have a policy, review your coverage with your agent. We've talked about a lot of terminology, and you can kind of, if there's something that kind of stuck in your mind from what I've said tonight and you want to make sure it's on your policy, call your agent and ask them, am I covered for this? Do I have this on my policy? If you decide, hey, I want to see what another carrier could do for my business, I want to get a competitive quote, try to do it at your renewal. It'll save you, it could save you money because some carriers will charge you for canceling early. And also try to give the new carrier 30 to 45 days to quote it, because it can take time, and they may be able to shop with multiple carriers. And so you want to give them as much time as possible so that they can get the best rate for you. If you don't have a policy yet, request a quote from your trusted carrier. You can start with whoever does your home and auto, or someone that you trust in the industry, and tell them about your business. They should want to learn about your business and ask you some questions so that they can get you a policy that's tailored to you. And just a plug to always review your personal insurance each year. We reach out to all of our clients every year and check in with them, make sure that nothing's changed. Like, do you run a business out of your home now? Maybe that's changed. I just heard a statistic that 60% of Americans have a side hustle. So there's a lot of us out there that have a side business that they're doing, and you want to talk to your insurer and about getting proper coverage for that. Maybe you've remodeled a kitchen, those kinds of things. You want to check in regularly with your agent on those. Umbrella policies are important. Those go over your whole business, and they provide an extra layer of liability protection. So ask your agent about that if that's right for you in your situation. And all of you should seriously consider having a key person policy. It's really life insurance for your business. And what that means is if something happens to you as the business owner, there is coverage for whoever's going to be picking up the pieces, because they will have to. They may have to take off work. They may have to hire someone to fill in so that the business can carry on if that's what they want to do. And if they have a pocket of money from a life insurance policy, that's going to make it a lot easier for the continuity of your business. So I would encourage all of you, if you don't have that, if you don't have a life policy with a beneficiary that relates to your business, to reach out and get that done as quickly as possible. That's very important. Okay, any questions? And I'll leave it on my last page, which is just my contact information if you guys need anything. I'm just looking, I don't see any questions in the chat, but let me know if you guys have anything.
Thank you for the information, sir. I'm trying to think if we have any questions. I had to have liability insurance to get a UPK contract this year, and they had very specific stipulations about like limits and stuff. They didn't require me to get auto insurance because I really don't do field trips. The kids just come to my home.
Okay, good.
Cool. But in the renewal form for this year, now they're requiring like $1 million per incident auto insurance policy to do any field trips. And so I'm not really sure about that, because I have like the childcare part and I have the UPK part. So I'm wondering if I can just do field trips under like my childcare part, because that's just covered under my normal Geico, and then I wouldn't have to have such a high limit for the UPK. Do you know anything about that? Because part of the UPK thing is they require that the state is listed on your insurance policy as a beneficiary.
And help me, Michelle, UPK. I don't know all the terminology.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the state's preschool program.
Oh,
It's
yes.
called
Okay. Yeah.
Universal Preschool. So you have to have like a childcare license first, in place first. And then you get the contract with the state for UPK, and they have additional qualifications. And
Yes.
one of the things they're very serious about is the insurance. Like you have to have general liability insurance with $1 million per incident, and the state has to be listed on the policy.
Okay.
So I did that for this past year that I'm just finishing up. And now for the new contract going forward, they're being more strict about the auto insurance. So I don't know if that's.
Are they requiring the auto insurance use?
If you do any field trips, they want
Okay.
like $1 million per incident auto policy.
I know that it's expensive, but I think it's wise. There's a reason they're telling you to have that coverage. And I think that two things, either bite the bullet and get that coverage, find out what it is, you may have to pass on the costs, or don't do the field trips,
Right. I'm kind of leaning towards not doing the field trips.
which is a bummer.
But yeah, they're so fun. The kids love them.
I
But I
know.
don't really know. I need to contact my current insurance carrier and see if they offer that, or, I'd have to kind of piece it together with different.
No, they should be able to help you or they might work with other carriers and they should be able to find a carrier that can get that auto policy. I know Progressive is a good one for that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it shouldn't be hard. I mean, expensive, possibly, but not hard to find.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, the
Yeah.
general liability, I think I'm paying like $72 a month, but it's only
Okay.
for like 7 months. It's very reasonable. But
Good.
it sounds like the auto insurance would be a lot more. I don't know.
It can be, but think about it. You're probably, are you using a vehicle that you insure personally right now?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have that cost anymore. You would not have to keep your personal policy anymore. You
Well,
can,
that's good to know. Okay.
yeah, you could do the commercial policy. And maybe start with your carrier, and then the next one I would check is Progressive, because that's where I've placed some in the past, is with Progressive. And then you can tell them, this is my business use, but also I do have some personal use. That way they cover all of it, and you only have to have that one policy for it. So you're going to save that money on the personal side.
I didn't realize that. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all good luck with your businesses. And if you think of anything else, feel free to reach out. I'm available over the phone or email.
Yeah, and I will share your contact with everyone in the follow-up email. There's quite a few people that are not able to make it tonight too, so they'll see the
Okay.
report. And if more
Thanks,
questions,
Ro.
we'll let you know. Yeah, thank you, Connie.
Appreciate it. Guys, have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Michelle, it might be worth checking in to see if some of those entities will come to your program. Like I know the Denver Nature and Science Museum might come to your program. I think the zoo visits with people. Like I know it's not the same as a field trip, but they will like come to different programs. The Denver Nature and Science Museum specifically is really trying to like increase the programs available for early childhood. So it's worth reaching out to them. Or if you can't take them, maybe they can come visit you and do something and they give you free tickets to give your families. Like you might just want to check in with them and see what they're willing to do. But they're really trying to do more.
That is really good to know. That did not even occur to me. I mean, would they come to a home even if?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just childhood programs. And I know they're trying to grow that. So I think they want to do whatever they can to help.
That is cool. Who would I like ask for if I called or
Just call them a number and say you're interested in early childhood education programming, and they'll transfer you to the person that does that.
Okay. Thank you.
They also have an educators night. I was just trying to look that up. They have like an educator night that's open to public school programs and also any early childhood person. I don't think it's on their calendar yet, but when I find it, I'll let you guys know. Because they like open up the bottom levels and stuff, because they keep all the artifacts in like different like cabinets that you move. It's really crazy to see. But they open it up for educators, and they have like free food, and they have a cash bar, and like it's a whole little event for educators. So when I see it on the calendar, I'll let you guys know, because it's really cool to go to.
Okay. Cool. I do like that idea. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. I think Hawk Quest is another one, and they'll bring out like hawks and stuff that they've trained. Like there's a bunch of different things that'll come out to see you.
Wow. So do you pay them like a couple $100 to come for an hour, or how does
So the
that?
Nature and Science Museum, I think, is free. I think the zoo is free. Hawk Quest, I think, is like 100. It used to be like 100 for an hour for them to come out.
That's very reasonable. Okay. I just would assume it'd be like crazy expensive, so
You
okay.
could also go on the Facebook pages and ask if there's anybody on there that knows of somebody that does like specialized services. Because you might have like a parent that has a friend that does balloon art, or you might have a grandparent that does face painting or whatever. Like there's all kinds of people that have all kinds of skills. A chef, you could, if anyone knows somebody that's a cook, just a basic cook, like, can you just come show us? You can get like little child-friendly knives and like learn how to cut stuff. Like there's a lot of people with a lot of skills where you don't have to go somewhere.
That's a really good idea. Thank you. Okay.
Questions, thoughts? Insurance is so fun, so important, but so
I
fun.
know. I was like, oh, I was so good with how it was this last year. Why'd they have to change it, right? But, oh, well.
Sometimes
Well,
I
I
don't
just
know if
want
they
to
know.
clarify something.
Mhm.
Do you have to have separate, when you say commercial insurance, separate for the business, or can that be together? You just upgrade your personal insurance?
It sounded like she was saying that your business insurance and your personal homeowner's insurance need to be different.
For the auto,
That I'm not sure. If you have additional questions, you might just want to meet with her one-on-one and go over like your specific policies you have right now. These advisors are great, and they're normally like 150 something an hour. So if you can take advantage of them for free through this class, you really should be making meetings with them because they're all great. But if you want clarification, you might want to either email her or make a meeting.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Raul, can you send out the links for both of them to make an appointment when you send out the materials? I'm sure you probably will. Then.
Definitely.
Cool. Any other questions? Are the specialists only available for free consultations during the length of this course? Raul, I don't know the answer to that.
No. Advising is free for eternity through the SBDC. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, look,
and,
Andrea's excited.
actually,
She's like,
actually, on that note, I want to reiterate that y'all should be meeting with Dora
oh,
on a regular basis, especially through the course, because tons of your questions are going to be coming up through this course because of the exposure to so much information. In a perfect world, if you can schedule once a week right now, I think that's pretty good idea to do. And then from there, you can determine maybe another cadence if it makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's a data that has shown that for people that have every single advising session you do, the more revenue you make. So it's like a linear trend line. So it doesn't hurt.
yeah. And next week I'm out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I'm back Thursday and Friday, and my Friday day is pretty clear. So just make a meeting. And I'll put my email in here again. If you guys ever have any issues or you're having a problem scheduling or something like that, like just email me and we'll figure it out. I'm fun, I promise. I'm more fun when I'm awake during the day than I am between 6 and 8 on a Thursday night. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that, Andrea. I'm interested to hear what your story is. Let's definitely check in. I think you have a meeting on Tuesday, but I need to reschedule that because I won't be here because I'm off. I am taking a vacation. I gotta get out of here. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think tonight's class is only supposed to go to 7:45, so you guys get 15 minutes back. Yay! Oh, okay, yeah.
Thank you. And have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
You too. Have a great, hopefully 3-day weekend, guys.
Thank you. You too.
Again,
Done. Cool. Talk to you later. Bye.